Hey everybody, welcome into the Jesse and Megan press conference here at Family Sports. No, this is Guerilla Sports Off Ice. We are here after a busy day of press conferences, Megan. We had a retirement press conference. We heard from GM Chris MacFarland. And then, of course, regular locker room, talked to Jared Bednar, all that good stuff as well. So we got a bit to get into here on the eve of the season getting going. Roster moves. I'm not going to say final yet. Because we're still waiting to see how a couple last things shake out. We got a good idea of what we're going to be looking like for tomorrow. So we're going to get into all of it. Do, of course, want to start by reminding you guys about our great friends over at RefiJet. Did you know that you could refinance your auto loan? Well, with RefiJet, you could save around $150 every single month, all with just a soft credit pull and zero hassle. Lower payments, flexible terms, maybe even some cash back in your pocket from your car's equity. RefiJet does the work. You get the savings. Start today at refijet.com, the faster, easier way to refinance. Hey everybody, welcome in. How's it going? Jesse Montaño, Meghan Angley down here at Family Sports Avs practice facility after we heard from Erik Johnson and his official retirement announcement. And then Megan, after practice, we got to hear from Chris MacFarland, Jared Bednar. But we are on the eve of the season getting going. How are you doing? How was your weekend?
It was really good. I consider going up to Eagles camp on Friday part of my weekend, and then the final preseason game is done, and it was a really AHL heavy lineup, but I still think there's a lot that you can take away from that, especially given how stacked the Dallas side of things was. I thought it was interesting. It was definitely pretty rough hockey, though, on the whole. So I'm just excited for regular season hockey to finally kick off. Well,
and there were a couple guys in there that, you know, it was good to get kind of one last look at. For me, you know, Alex Gagne, Taylor McCarr, who we didn't get to get any looks at really in camp. So it was nice to get a look at him. And then just, you know, a couple of those guys that maybe were cut early, just get one last little glimpse at them before they, you know, go get on their development track. So I'm with you. AHL heavy lineup, not necessarily a bad thing there for that last preseason game.
Yeah. I didn't know how much we were going to talk about the game.
Well, no, I wasn't going to get into much further than that because.
So, now I feel bad like I'm going to point out a negative. There were things that I liked about the game. Taylor McCarr getting in his first real action of the preseason at all. I think having not had the camp then to build up to that, getting into game action, having a partial breakaway chance, and there was another shot attempt on net that I really liked overall his game, especially given the context of where he was coming from. But Alex Gagne struggled, and so you mention him. I just kind of want to point out that this was a very big wake-up call
100%.
at the difference in the skill level, the pace of play. And so where he really got burned, in my opinion, in this game too, was the pace of play. I think the physicality holds up really well. I'm encouraged that that's going to translate very well at the pro level for him, because I think it's just a matter of finding what's appropriate. And because it's a natural part of his game, I think it'll be pretty easy for him. So he wasn't bullied very easily, but he was late in some of his reads, getting beat inside ice. And so such a smart defensive player, you know, at the collegiate level, really exposed when he was playing up against an NHL lineup. And so as much as I've been high on Gagne's camp, and I continue to be, I do think that sort of solidifies where he's at in terms of his trajectory and eyeing any sort of an NHL role one day. There's a reason why a lot of these college, especially at the defenseman position, like Cale Makar's an anomaly, right? There's a reason they do have to get acclimated in the American League for a decent stretch of time. And then Sean Behrens gets hurt. And I don't have a further update, but I'm devastated. I'm crashing out over this.
A couple things that I wanted to Cale Makar also chose to go back to school for a second year by his own admission of, I wasn't ready. So as much as of an anomaly as Cale Makar is, like, he was even someone who the Avs were trying to get him there earlier, and he was like, no, I'm not ready for that yet. So just furthering your point. And then I also just wanted to fully agree with what you're saying about, like, it kind of affirms, you know, where what we were kind of talking about with Alex Gagne. He was a guy that, again, they've shown a willingness to give college free agents, you know, a look. But I think that game just kind of solidified, and it's okay. not quite ready yet. He's getting there. And I think that's totally okay.
And honestly, we'll get into this for the Eagles part of the pod, but that was just sort of the takeaway in looking at a really depleted Eagles back end. Also keeping in mind Ronnie Attard was hurt in this preseason in camp, Hank Kemp, Connor Kelly. There's opportunity for Gagne to get really big reps at the American League level. And so I think that pairing of Ahcan and Gagne struggled in this game. It was a bit of a mismatch. Barons early in the game before leaving, evidently to injury, made some really excellent plays on NHL players. And so that's why I get excited about the high IQ of Barons. Obviously nervous about where the health lines up then in terms of just staying healthy to start a season. But I wanted to shout out some of the early results of Barron's camp, another strong camp after last year. So just really hoping for the best for him. And then Malinski returns to his strong side in this game. So I just wanted to make sure we touch on a couple of these things before abandoning the Dallas game.
I was going to say, I'm so happy that we have the official Colorado Eagles podcast, new episode coming tomorrow. Because Megan, today might be a tough day for you if we didn't, with all the AHL guys going away. And but we're gonna be leaning into it all year.
I won't dwell on the super AHL heavy storylines, but Malinski returning to his strong side. Seeing the confidence of his game just kind of immediately return, seeing the capability to, I think, people with defensemen, it's so easy to look at one bad play, one really bad breakdown, and
because it ends up in the back of the net sometimes, and so it's easy for it to stick in your brain.
It is. It's easy to recall, and it's also easy to then feel as if that's the story of that player's game. Like, Malinski always does this, but honestly, like, his possession numbers and the defensive errors that he makes are some of the fewest errors and some of the best possession numbers with the top of the D-core here in Colorado on the team. And so this isn't a player who is so frequently making these types of mistakes like people would like to think. You just remember the mistakes. And that's true of any defenseman, including Sam Girard, who is often scapegoated very similarly. So the reason I point this out is I saw the old Malinski that the organization fell in love with, shades of that just immediately returning in this Dallas game back on his strong side. So it's a word of advice, like not to fully give up on this player, his fit in the organization, just because it's been a difficult adjustment for him.
Anybody that's doing that is silly. Anybody that's looked at his, the first couple of preseason games and they weren't even like bad games start to finish. He had some bad moments. Anybody who's looking at that saying, what happened to Malinski? Malinski's not who he used to be. Like that's, in my opinion, that's just crazy. And what I was going to say was, you do also wonder, because you and I have talked about several times that he's probably going to end up playing on the right side, at least to some extent, at some point this season, whether it be because of injury or, whatever. And I do now wonder a little bit of, he's already such a smart player, playing on his offside where he is having to think a little bit more than maybe he does, or he did last season or, whatever. But I also wonder, how much is that going to help him when he does switch back over to the right side? And suddenly he's not having to think so much, but he had to, I don't know if I'm saying this the right way, but think the game at a layer deeper level to play on his offside. I wonder how much positive that could have when he is back on his, on his right side and a little bit more comfortable from just, hey, I've been forced out of my comfort zone. When I'm back in my comfort zone, it's really nice. I'm with Jared Bednar, what he said that, at the very beginning of camp. I think give him a long leash. I think he's a smart player that's got the ability to do it. And you see it when you see him go back to his strong side.
And with the return of Sam Girard in that game as well, honestly looked good too. Like, it was a preseason game. You don't take away too much from it, but because he's also missed this camp through this point, I was encouraged. He appears healthy, ready to go. I don't have any concern then about his readiness when he gets into regular season games starting tomorrow. So I think what's interesting though is just kind of my anticipation is we're going to see Malinski on his left side a little bit, but I also think we might not see him play some nights and they wait for the opportunities to put him on his strong side as well. And I think some of that is just the return of confidence in getting him back on his right side, like just at the end of this camp, right? It's maybe something they have to periodically consider, and why the addition then of Ilya Solovyov is going to help to maybe balance out some of those reps and getting him in and out of the lineup I don't even want to speak that on him, but that's what it feels like to me this is going.
I'm also interested. I agree with that. I'm also interested to see how the pairs end up shaking out tomorrow. Brent Burns was skating with Sam Girard today. So are you going Sam Malinski with Josh Manson and just putting him with someone like that who is a little bit more responsible? Does that help him? And not that, you can't put it on everyone that he's playing with, but again, preseason, you're playing with different guys who aren't going to be on the team. There's the one game, him and Jack Ahcan were both playing on the same pairing, both playing on their offside. I'm going to be curious to see what it looks like tomorrow for Sam Malinski, and not only who he's playing with, but how much, maybe some of that stability, in the same way that we've talked about that with Ross Colton. How much could that help him settle in a bit on the left side as well?
Yeah, I think it's going to certainly push him out of his comfort zone, like you said. Yeah. But I still think that there's a very viable player with upside and a fit in this organization.
And especially, like I said, I think if you have a more steadying presence out there with him, Brent Burns, Josh Manson, I think that's going to help him even when he is feeling out of his comfort zone and having to play on his offside. Ultimately, I think... I don't think they'd be putting this on, like, if they didn't think Sam Malinski could do it, well, they would have just moved, they would have traded him and brought a different piece back.
They would have claimed Ilya Solovyov off waivers. Oh, but they did.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not saying this waiver claim is going to replace Sam Malinski.
No,
and if they did
it's
think
insurance.
That, for sure.
I told you, because you're like, how do you feel about this roster? And I was like, I think they can't help themselves. They're going to get a lefty. It's not even that I think Sam Malinski's going to fail. I don't think they can help themselves.
No, I completely agree. Well, and doesn't it also, and maybe this is a transition to talking about the next guy, it also speaks a little bit to, they just weren't quite sold on Keaton Middleton as that guy. And then, as you and I kind of speculated on that last podcast, that we could maybe see him hitting the waiver wire. That happened. He cleared. On Megan, I didn't know if he was going to. I was not certain that Keaton Middleton was going to get through waivers for the Avs.
I had that thought cross my mind, but the fact that Solovyov was available and the Avs claimed him, which means just like in the waiver wire priority,
he fell pretty far.
They were probably kind of low. I think the ceiling for Solovyov is higher than the ceiling for Middleton. It actually gave me confidence that Middleton would clear because of Solovyov.
Well, and I think there was 49 players on waivers or something yesterday. So if there's ever a time where you're trying to sneak somebody through, that they definitely did it right. We didn't see Keaton Middleton today, which did lead to a little bit of chatter amongst us media that maybe he did get claimed and maybe that's why he wasn't out here, but that's not the case. It feels like he's probably Loveland bound, right? Just there's no sense in carrying 2 extra lefties with you, right?
Well, and so Jack Ahcan is here, also clears waivers. They haven't officially announced the reassignment, so I'm assuming, Middleton reassigned outright to Eagles camp. But because Ahcan skated today and Jared Bednar has been singing his praises throughout camp,
totally.
I think that's one of the extra lefties, especially until immigration stuff gets figured out with Solovyov.
Oh my gosh, that's a great call out.
So,
great point.
Because he's not here yet. So, keeping that in mind, I think they want to keep Ahcan as the extra guy. And he brings something so different from Middleton that I am curious to see Solovyov's fit then when he does finally come here, because they weren't giving Middleton that regular of reps, but for a young 25-year-old player coming from the Calgary organization, he's going to kind of need playing time just to really see what he is. So I'm really curious to see what the future holds for how they construct the bottom of the D core going into the season.
Well, and again, I just keep coming back to what good problems to have.
It really is. I'm going to be honest, I still feel nervous about the back end. But
really?
It's maybe because I'm an anxious person and I like clarity, and there's not clarity. There is, all right, can Malinski ascend to being a guy they can trust playing on his left side enough? I still don't have the answer for that. See,
but doesn't your anxiety feel better that the fact that we're talking about who's going to be 6, 7, 8, and not
better than if I was worrying about 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
But I'm allowed to worry about everything.
I'm just saying, I'm allowed to worry about everything. My wife should get that tattooed on her somewhere.
It is my right. No, you're right.
But just if you're listing problems, saying, hey, worrying about this part of the decor versus, situations that they've been in the last couple seasons, better situation.
1,000%.
Yeah.
They've got options. And so that's what's interesting and not great for somebody who has anxiety and likes definitive answers. They don't have definitive answers, but to your point, in a good way, because they have options.
So, got a new car over the weekend, and my wife was not having a ton of fun because I'm someone where I test drove and I'm like, yeah, I like it. Let's see what they've got. And she's like I need to test drive 5 different models, 2 different trim levels for each model. I need to see what the colors are. How much are the colors? I need to see it. And she's a,
yeah,
I need to do a week of research type of gal. And so we were sitting there and she loves the car, but the whole time she was like, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this process. I hate this. And then we got out and she was like, oh, I don't know how you made a decision that quick, but that's good to be done with it. It's like, right. It's great to be done.
It's great to be done. And the Avs, for right now, right?
Right now.
They're done.
They're done. They're done for right now. One thing they're not done with is a Marty Netchis extension. And you could maybe say things got shaken up a bit today on that front. And I asked Chris MacFarland if contracts that we are seeing fall elsewhere in the league have any impact. And truthfully, Megan, I was expecting him to kind of shut it down, be like, no, we don't really.
I'm glad.
And he didn't. He was like, yeah,
a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. We focus on our stuff, but we also do pay attention to what's going on out there. And for anyone who hasn't seen, well documented, I actually think we talked about it a bit on the last show. Kirill Kaprizov signs 8 years, $17 million. And we talked about on that show of, man, Edmonton might be in a weird spot here because they could potentially end up signing Connor McDavid for less than $17 million because I don't know if they have the money to make it work. Well, Megan, not only do they sign him for less, not only is it under $15 million, like was originally reported, not only was it under $14 million, like came out a little bit after word was making its way around, the contract was done, 2-year extension, 12.5 for Connor McDavid. Let's take a quick second here to talk about this. I can't believe it to the point where I don't have any words for it, Megan. Is there a contract in pro sports that is as team friendly as this anywhere?
I wouldn't be able to answer that, but it's short term, which I talked about being leverage, but I expected it to come in high AAV.
I agree.
And I think it's a great gesture from Connor McDavid. Honestly, an interesting message to the league. We talked about this, but different teams are in different stages of being contenders. And being a contender means some form of sacrifice in terms of roster construction. And to accept 12.5 is a huge sacrifice that should be then in the name of other aspects of roster construction. And what's interesting about the sacrifice too is it's not one that McDavid had to make because I think that they haven't always allocated the right parts of the cap to right places in the lineup. I mean, I'm even kind of surprised by the Jake Wallman extension that comes in.
I agree.
Right after this, the 7x7. Look, I get that the cap is going up, so that probably will become a more appropriate contract for a player of his ilk. But I don't think it's appropriate right now. And so is Connor McDavid's. It's very inappropriate right now. That's very undervalued. And thankfully with the term, there's plenty of room for that to be rectified at the end of this contract. So what I see from McDavid is a leader in taking so much less that they can hopefully commit to other parts of the lineup. And this is too where someone said it's F around and find out time for Edmonton.
Yep.
I fully agree with that assessment because I personally feel like some of the big holdup would be boiled down to a lack of a response for goaltending from Edmonton this offseason. And I think that, 2 years buys them some time to see how they decide to address this past, obviously, the waiver claim of Connor Ingram. I think, McDavid, it is the time for them to see if they've really built a contender or not. And there's very limited opportunity for them to course correct, but he's given them room in terms of not taking up too much of their cap space with such a low contract to make some changes in the future. But, it wasn't necessarily like he wasn't the guy that you would point to and say he's the one who needs to take less.
Right.
And so much less at that.
And to your point, I was sitting here saying that, and Megan, and this is what I believe. I think we are looking at 3 more years of, including this coming season, of Connor McDavid in Edmonton. Then I think he's going to end up moving on very disappointed. And I think that they are going to ultimately look back at everything, and it's going to be one of the biggest management failures of all time. And as we were talking about, me saying, as Yumi and Arif were sitting around talking around like, well, they don't make the right moves with the money that they have left over. Like, that's the biggest worry. Immediately, Jake Wallman, 7x7. And It's like, you guys got Connor McDavid to give, what people were thinking, like a $9 million discount or $8 million discount over what people thought he was going to end up taking, all to immediately turn around and give the guy that hits the gritty when he scores twice a year, $7 million. Like, I don't get it. And like, if I'm Connor McDavid, I'm fuming when I see that contract come out.
Well, I have to
why did I just give up this money?
He has to be like best friends with Jake Wallman at this point.
I would hope so.
Because there has to be a reason beyond what we see on ice, right? Like, there has to be a cultural reason that's been endorsed by the leadership core.
Right.
That is part of that. And same with Trent Frederick, who we've talked about too. Like, for the role that he plays, it's a very depthy role. That's not quite the depth money. And it makes the bigger picture then in trying to address things like the rest of the decor outside of what they call their top 4. And you're just like, these are good players, but like, is that solidly a top 4 on the back end?
Why is Connor McDavid the only one in Edmonton that gets that takes a discount while everyone else gets paid above market value?
That's what's weirding me out about all of this. It's like, they signed this very team-friendly McDavid contract. And they're like, we've got money in our pocket, burning a hole. Like, let's go spend it on Jake Wallman.
And again, like, I still don't think you have a number 1 defenseman. You arguably don't even have an NHL caliber goaltender, depending on where people, how you feel about Stuart Skinner. At best, he's a backup. I just like, I look at this and I don't know why Connor McDavid did. Like, I would love to know what those meetings were like, what they said to him that made him feel like, you know what? Now you guys are going to change the way that you do stuff. I have single-handedly dragged us to the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row, but I'll bet you now you guys are going to start doing the right stuff from the front office standpoint. And if they don't win, I don't think there's any world where he re-signs there after this contract is up. And if they do win, he has every right to go in there and ask for $30 million a year. Like, this was a really confusing bit of business. And the reason I brought this up in general is for all the market resetting that everyone thought Kirill Kaprizov did, teams like the Avs that are in negotiations with guys like Marty Necas can now say, hey, here's what a team that's trying to win did to make sure they can build the team the most complete. So that's really what we're going to need.
It's a really extreme example, too, because of just how much money McDavid left on the table.
Right.
But I do think it was going to come to some kind of a midway point like this where, look, if you want to play for a contender and with high caliber players that come with contenders, there are sacrifices to be made, to include like even Nathan McKinnon's current contract. So I think that was always going to be part of the leverage. This now just gives a very extreme current example that they can point to of what it takes to win. And, so to that end, I don't know that it's fair to like expect Marty Necas to fall on the sword.
I agree.
Take such a team-friendly contract for the Avs, I think the loyalty to the organization is far different in
100%.
what's expected of McDavid. But I do think the leverage was always there to point to, like, hey, they're vying for a Stanley Cup. That's the ambition for this team this year. If you want to be a part of that and part of it for the future, because, you know, Makar, McKinnon in their primes, that's what you're signing up for.
Well, and yeah, I lost my train of thought a little bit there, but talking about, no, I was going to say, I do wonder too, if both these contracts end up being so much of an anomaly that it's just like, yeah, we actually can't use either of those as comps. Kirill Kaprizov, you know, is worth so much to the Minnesota Wild. And then, like we talked about on the show the other day, their owner didn't do them any favors by coming out and saying, we're going to pay him whatever he wants. And then his agent was like, perfect. We will take that very literally.
You to it.
And what you just said about McDavid, like the relationship to the organization, all of that, I almost wonder if it felt like Kirill Kaprizov was potentially resetting the market, and then McDavid made it so it's just like, oh yeah, everyone just ignore these last 2 contracts. But I do want to point out, Chris MacFarland did talk about Marty Necas and the ongoing negotiations. Did say, I'm not worried about it. Said that sometimes things get done before the season, sometimes get done during the season, near the end. I'm not worried about it, was the quote.
I don't believe you, Chris. But you know, I have anxiety, so I'm projecting like really hard because it's just the lack of certainty. Like, it's not been done definitively. So until it's definitive, I'm going to worry a tiny bit about it. But actually, I think that I have felt for a little while now, both parties should be pretty highly motivated to get something done.
Totally.
Here in Colorado, including Marty Necas. So I maintain that stance that it still makes a lot more sense to me that they could work something out than not.
And I have to, again, with how all over the place these contracts are that these, high skill star players are signing for, I do also wonder if you're Marty Necas, if you're starting to look at this going, okay, I don't know if I can walk into free agency and know, what I'm going to be able to command. Like we've seen, that happen to players. Jack Roslovic still is unemployed, and I know not quite apples to apples, but I don't know, maybe it does just cause a moment of pause where it's like, oh, if I did walk into free agency, I might end up on a team that's not quite ready to contend, and I don't know if it's going to be for as much money as I initially thought. I imagine the NHLPA today is having some pretty feverish conversations after that contract gets signed.
It was interesting to me. Chris MacFarland doesn't say a lot, so what he does say, I always like to overanalyze, and he did make mention of the fact that there are other unsigned free agents still to this day, right now, from this last offseason. So I thought that was significant to kind of what you're saying, that you can walk into free agency as Marty Necas with a little bit of uncertainty. You have this idea of what your value is as a player, and it might not be reflected back to you in free agency, and you don't want to take that gamble.
No, 100%. So we're going to obviously stay on top of the Marty Necas stuff, but I just thought him saying, I'm not worried, was noteworthy. And you hope is not a quote that ends up on all kinds of quote graphics at the end of the year, come trade deadline time or something like that.
It'll never be as bad as Miko.
No kidding. Megan, anything else on the Avs side of things before we get to EJ? And just, anything in the run up to tomorrow? I think, as we kind of talked about at the start of training camp, like it's gone pretty chalk. Like this has been more or less what we expected. Bardakov, Jared Bednar said 4C. And then Brindley was the one guy that we said, could make a push. Well, the dust settled. It's Bardakov at 4C. It's Brindley, as we'll see where he slots in tomorrow, if he's the extra, if he's in the lineup, whatever he will be on the trip. No real big surprises, maybe outside of the waiver claim, which sends Keaton Middleton onto waivers. I said pretty as advertised, in my opinion, for Avs camp.
I think Brindley making the team is a surprise in that I think a lot of people viewed him as straight to Loveland, just going straight to camp, with a pat on the back. Attaboy, you had a great camp. We'll call you up first thing. Yep. There's an opportunity.
She's talking about me. That was me who said that.
Evan Rawl told me that Gavin Brindley told him that he's playing tomorrow. So we're getting an opening.
Well, that Evan guy's always full of shit. So you can never take what he says too much.
I think I want to carve out just a little bit of time to be excited about this because, look, I think that after the season he had, getting adjusted to pace of play at the American League, this is an exciting camp. This is in ways a surprise. Like the work ethic, that's not a surprise. But to have gotten some of that offensive side of his game to translate in preseason, especially as the caliber of competition ramped up, I still think he held his own against Dallas. Just his play through the neutral zone, utilizing his speed, sometimes he's stopped in his tracks because a player is just bigger. But he's so many ways around this that I think will translate to the NHL level right now. Now, I don't think this is a permanent win, but it's a reward for a really strong camp. And that is so important for now a 21-year-old player, just had a birthday, still very young. What that means to his confidence. Like, I don't want to gloss over how significant that is to build up his confidence and get him off on the right foot to start this year.
Well, you and I were talking about it last week, and I was the one who said I'd like to see them send him down and let him go, do it in the AHL for a couple weeks and just see it continue to keep going because he had the year where he struggled a bit last year. Offense didn't quite translate, and you were the one who said, I'd like to see him get the reward. Get the reward for his great camp. Get him in the first. So, I'm with you. I don't think that this means, unless he really starts to excel, I don't think this means he's going to stick around for the next, 4 months. But I'm really anxious to see him tomorrow because not only is it going to be, full go, he's going to be playing in the depth role. So let's see how he handles it. And he's going to be playing against the LA Kings. Big, mean, physical. And I think tomorrow, for as good as his camp has been, for as well as he showed out in every game, did he get a point against Dallas?
Yeah, he had the cross ice pass on the...
I believe point in every game, going back to the rookie tournament. But it's going to dial up again tomorrow. From college to the American League was a dial up for him. From the American League to this camp that he had here, that's a dial up for him. And now it's got to go another level. And I'm curious. Jared Bednar told us, I think it was last week, everything we keep throwing at him, no problem. He can handle it. I'm really anxious to see how he handles tomorrow because tomorrow will be another new test for how much is this translating right now. And I want to keep pointing out, birthday was yesterday, I think.
Right.
21 years old.
Just turned 21.
Very young kid here. So if it doesn't go great in the first couple of games, if it just goes okay, that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
If it goes really well, good for the Avs. Good for him, good for the Avs. But I'm really curious to see how he handles. I think it's a perfect test for him tomorrow. The fact that it is going to be a team that I'm sure there's going to be keying in on finish your check.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could even see the way Dallas kind of picked up on the clear size difference.
Right.
There was a guy who shouldered him down. I think it was Foxa. Just shouldered him down. And Kivy Ronta was giving it to him. He's like, what the hell?
Well, so...
What the helly?
Let's talk about Kivy. Because I'm not a mathematician here, but if both Bardakov and Brindley play tomorrow, that means someone is coming out. And there were 4 guys in green jerseys today. There's Parker Kelly, Gavin Brindley, Zakar Bardakov, and Yoel Kiviranta. If he's going to play Brindley and Bardakov, it's Kivy, right?
Yeah. So, and what's interesting to me is one of my immediate reactions to the Kivy signing was confusion around what it meant for Bardakov. Because MacFarland was pretty clear from the jump that he saw Bardakov as a guy who could come in and be the 4C out of camp.
Yep.
And I'm excited that has panned out pretty well so far. And so I'm immediately thinking to myself then with this Kivy extension on the heels of that insight, where does it put Kivy? he's the odd man out in being a winger, right? Like, there's just not an abundance of winger spots, especially when a Logan O'Connor gets healthy. You know, Gavin Brindley, yeah, he can get reassigned to the Eagles, get in some games there. There's
no waivers.
Still not lots of room for Kivy, who I think signed to be the 13th forward. Like, going back to that extension, I think there had to be some sense of knowing, because you add Victor Olofsson, you know, sometime after that, that solidifies that third line, and injuries are inevitable. So there's still a very important role for Kivy here. But just even looking at special teams today, they're giving Brindley a lot of reps on the kill against that top unit. And I don't think he's going to come in and be a PK specialist out the gate. He did not kill penalties in the American League last year. That's a really significant note. This is very new for him then. So that's going to take time. Like, I don't think he's beating Kivy out of that job just
full time.
No. But that still leaves Kivy as kind of an odd man out for when Logan O'Connor does eventually return to the lineup. And it's interesting because that is the kind of depth I do get excited about. You know, I do like the idea of Kivy being the 13th forward. It's not to diminish what Kivy is. It's just that's how deep you are when that's the conversation you're having, and I love it.
No, I completely agree with you. For all the, you know, tongue in cheek, you know, that we are about Joel Kiviranta, I completely agree with you. Like, when you go back to 2022, I'm staring at the Stanley Cup champion banner right now. When you go back to that year, who were your healthy scratches in the playoffs? Guys like Andre Burakovsky, Alex Newhook, like that. It's not an indictment on those players. It's, here is, you know, this representative of how deep of a roster we have. And I look at a guy like Joel Kiviranta and I'm saying, yeah, if you are building this team to make a run for the cup and that's your 13th forward, you're in excellent shape. You're in excellent shape. And so I'm with you. And so I do just wonder if that's what we see tomorrow. And you made the great call out on one of the shows where we were talking about it, of like, of anybody who should be okay with it, it's a guy like Joel Kiviranta. It's not a spot that he's unfamiliar with.
I certainly hope so. Like, I hope there's been an awareness of this possibility going back to when he signed his extension. It makes it so interesting too. On the heels of like a 16-goal season. Anyways, I won't dwell on it too much. It's a good problem to have. And, you know, I think it's temporary. Like, I think it's to reward Brindley in particular, who benefits from this most, for such a strong camp. And I do go back to, with such a young player, that really goes a long way. You know, another interesting thing Letestu told me about just some of the differences for Gavin Brindley that have led to immediate success here in Colorado was how much this group embraced him immediately. He specifically shouted out Brent Burns connecting with Brindley throughout this camp and making him feel comfortable. And I thought that was significant too.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I think the culture of this group, we know it's good, but it can help young players build their confidence in camp and have really strong camps.
Yeah. It's going to be exciting tomorrow to see what this group looks like. You know, it feels like this has kind of been the group for the last few months, and now we just get to see it in action. Megan, let's wind the pod down with Erik Johnson. Officially announced his retirement over the weekend, but we got to meet with him today. Spoke with the media for I think about 15 minutes. And then was, you know, very gracious, did a you know, one-on-one chat with us after, and everybody, you know, he was kind of just like, hey, anybody wants a one-on-one, I'm available. And so, you know, it was great. But I think, you know, we talked to Chris MacFarland, Jared Bednar about him. And I think when you talk to other people about Erik Johnson, you hear all the things they say, you understand how well liked he is. And then you have the kind of interaction that we all got to have today with Erik Johnson, and you just understand why. Seems like such a great guy. You know, he said it takes zero talent to be a great teammate and a good person. And I think that right there exemplifies Erik Johnson through and through.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. His impact has really, I think it's had a huge impact on a lot of his teammates. You know, I think the levity that he adds has helped to establish balance in the locker room, and I think picking his spots too of when to have fun and when to be serious, because he is really serious too. He was a very serious competitor, especially just like in his approach to preparing for game days, like he alluded to today. And so I like that Chris MacFarland kind of modified or corrected something Erik Johnson had said when he said that he was a very good player on bad teams. Chris MacFarland said he was also a very good player on good teams.
Yeah.
And I agree with that because I think, too, there's a section of Avs hockey where he's playing with like Jan Heda, and I think he was a good player. It just, and not because the team was maybe kind of in that transitional stage.
Right.
I think he was just a good player.
Well, and he his time with Colorado is so funny because the height of his career. Well, and I'm going to amend that in just a second. When he was consistently playing at his best was when the team was consistently at their worst. And then as the team got better, again, I think it's just that his role changed. I don't think it was that he was suddenly a bad hockey player or anything like that. But his role changed as the team got younger, the guys came in around. But Megan, I contest to this day that Erik Johnson, 2022 round 1 through the Western Conference Final, was the best hockey Erik Johnson ever played for the Colorado Avalanche.
I think, too, the compete and his impact on the penalty kill, just selling out, blocking shots, still great reads. It's really significant. And honestly, being able to keep up with the pace of play and coming off the heels of that like weird foot injury, too, to have bounced back as quickly as he... Am I getting the right season, too?
Yep.
My goodness. Just still so highly competitive. And honestly, I think that's what the Avs have been looking, is having a third pairing as strong as it was in the Cup run has been hard for them to replicate.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's leadership that you can't replicate. Erik Johnson went through and read like a list of here's everyone that I want to call out in particular, and the list was 3 minutes long, and he even said like I could keep going.
Right.
I could keep you guys here all day and list everybody that has really helped me along the way. So just again speaks to the kind of person he is. For those of you out there wondering, he will be in the studio a bit for Altitude. He's going to be doing some color commentary for DU, for Air Force. And then I also thought it was interesting. It sounds like the team that he's actually going to be getting the most involved with, at least immediately in terms of helping the team on the ice,
right,
it's Philadelphia Flyers. I said that him and Danny Briere have a great relationship, and so he'll be assisting Danny Briere, who's the GM of the Flyers, there in Philly.
But I think back to the trade this last year that brought him aboard, that was very courteous of Danny B. So I have to imagine there's a very good mutual respect and kindness that both of these people show each other.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what his role is. Like, is it kind of a player development type role too? And just given the type of person EJ is, I think he'd be a great fit in a role like that too. I think that he can really relate to kind of anyone, no matter their age, no matter where they're at in their development. And then, of course, certainly relate to being a player who's kind of been everything at different stages of his career. So very excited to see what that question mark additional thing is for EJ.
For sure. Anything else for Avs today?
No.
Season opener tomorrow?
I mean, there's plenty, but we've also got time.
Season opener tomorrow, home opener Thursday. We made it. We made it. That was a long preseason.
Yeah.
That was a long preseason, but I'm really excited. I think this is a group to be excited about, Megan. And I'm going to leave it on this for me. We asked Sam Girard today about, I think it was you asked him about coming off that loss last year.
I feel bad bringing it up so late into camp. We just haven't talked to him
yet.
Right.
Well, and I loved his answer.
It was very raw. I appreciated it too.
It sucked. It sucks to lose in the playoffs. And, Megan, that just made me feel like that's probably the message that's in that room right now. That sucked. We're not going to do that again. Anxious to get going. Anxious to see what they've got tomorrow in LA. That's going to do it, guys. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montaño. We got Dan here with us as well. I'll be in LA tomorrow, so bringing you guys everything from the season opener. But we got a busy week ahead as the Avs kick off their regular season, and we're pretty much immediately into every other night, Megan.
I'm so excited.
Can't wait. She's Megan. I'm Jesse. Got Dan here. Guerilla Sports Off Ice. Have a great week, everybody. Talk to you later.